What should I do if another kid is being a bully?
If you're on a playground and you see a kid hurting or making fun of another kid, your first impulse might be to turn around and pretend you didn't see it. But imagine how that bullied kid is feeling. And you'll know that the right thing to do is to try to put a stop to it. Sometimes, if the bully is a bigger kid and is being rough, the best thing to do is to find a teacher or another adult and tell that person what's going on. Or, if the situation doesn't feel like it could threaten your personal safety, the best thing you can do is to stand up for the kid being bullied. Kids who make fun of others usually expect to get a laugh from their friends. And if you show the bully that his or her teasing isn't funny and that you support the person being teased, it could end the teasing right there. Lots of kids have been picked on by a bully, for many different reasons. If you've been the target of a bully, you know it can be very scary and upsetting to be teased, hit, or threatened. Sometimes it helps to simply ignore what the bully is saying. Most bullies do what they do to get a reaction from those they tease. And if they get no reaction at all, it's a lot less fun for them. It usually helps to have friends around, too. A kid walking alone is more vulnerable than a group of kids, and if you are bullied when your friends are with you, it might help you feel brave enough to stand up to the bully. Even if you don't feel that confident, sometimes just acting confident can go a long way. If you hold your head high and tell a bully to stop calling you names, you may just surprise that bully into silence. One approach to avoid is responding to bullying with violence. It will probably only make matters worse. Even though it may feel awkward or embarrassing, it might help to tell your parents or a teacher what you're going through. At the very least, they can make you feel better by explaining why bullies behave the way they do, and by reassuring you that what the bully says about you has nothing to do with who you really are. And at the most, adults can help keep you safe if you're being threatened.
How is sonar different from radar?
Sonar, short for sound navigation ranging, and radar, radio detection and ranging, work in much the same way to locate distant objects. In both cases, invisible waves are sent out and reflected back once they hit something solid. The time it takes for the waves to return to their point of origin tells how far away an object is located. Radar uses a certain type of light wave known as a radio wave to locate objects. Like all light waves, radar travels in a straight line and at a constant speed. At 186,000 miles, 299,274 kilometers per second, which is the speed of light. Sonar uses sound waves to locate objects. These waves, too, travel in a straight line, but at varying speeds, depending on what they are traveling through. Sound is caused by the vibration of an object, which in turn vibrates surrounding molecules that make sound waves in a kind of chain reaction. Sonar detection is mainly used underwater, where light waves do not travel well. In water, sound waves move about 4 times faster than they do through air because water is denser and has more molecules that can vibrate. But even at 4,600 feet, 1,400 meters per second, sound waves travel much more slowly than light waves. They also can't be used in outer space, which is airless and has essentially no molecules at all.
What causes escalator steps to fold flat when they get to the top and the bottom?
The secret has to do with hidden wheels connected to each step that run along rails. Each stair has 2 wheels on each side. Wheels connected to the front of each stair run along one rail, and wheels connected to the back of each stair run along another. When escalator rails run alongside each other, their stairs have a normal shape. But the rails change position in relation to each other as they approach the top and bottom of an escalator, and the stairs are gradually pulled flat.
How do escalators work?
An escalator is a continuously moving stairway. It takes people from one floor of a building to another, just like an elevator. But it can transport many more people than an elevator can in the same amount of time. Between 5,000 and 8,000 per hour. An escalator is run by an electric motor located at the top. It turns a large, geared drive wheel that moves a chain with steps attached to it in a continuous loop above the floor and below. A large return wheel guides the chain at the bottom of the escalator. So a set of escalator stairs runs under the set you travel on, which pop up for more riders. Rubbery handrails, which also move in a continuous loop, are connected to the drive wheel as well and give riders a good grip as they travel along.
Can pets see what's on television?
When dogs and cats look at the television, they don't see the same things that you do. They can see little or no color and can't identify objects that appear on the flat screen. But they are attracted to the movement that they see on television. Action on the screen probably stirs their hunting instincts, making them think they are watching small, scurrying prey. Dogs and cats may also show interest in some of the sounds that come from television shows. A dog barking on TV may make your pet dog bark back. Or a ringing doorbell in a TV show might prompt your dog to get up and go to the door.
Do all children go to school?
A lot of children around the world learn to read and write and do arithmetic in places that don't resemble the school that you go to. A temple, a tent, or a building on stilts may serve as a classroom. For some children living in very different places around the world. In poor places that have no money to build schools, children may learn their lessons outdoors. In isolated places like the Australian outback or Alaskan wilderness where families live hundreds of miles apart and far from cities and towns, children may get their lessons from teachers over two-way radios or, in recent years, over the internet. And not all children go to school as we know it, learning lessons from a teacher. Reading, writing, and arithmetic may not be important skills for some children to learn. A child living in the bush in Africa, for instance, may have little use for mathematics, but will need to know how to identify animals' tracks and make bows and arrows for hunting. Parents or other adults will train the child until the skills are learned, acting as teachers. So while not all children learn what they need to in a typical classroom, most learn the skills that are important to their way of life. Children learn all sorts of things inside and outside classrooms.
Why do cats have whiskers?
The whiskers of a cat are part of its sense of touch. The long stiff hairs are called vibrissae, and, just like our own hairs, they are connected to nerves at their roots that send information to the brain. A house cat usually has 12 whiskers on either side of its nose, as well as a few above its eyes, on its cheeks, and behind its front legs. These long, sensitive whiskers are particularly useful at night, when many cats are most active. They can give a cat information about surroundings that it can barely see. Whiskers can help a cat feel the distance between objects, letting it know if it can pass between them. Some scientists think that cat whiskers are so sensitive that they can feel the air move around objects, keeping a cat from bumping into them or helping it to travel safely over uneven ground.
Why do cats' eyes shine at night?
In the wild, cats frequently hunt in twilight and at night. They can do this because they have special vision that allows them to see well in dim light. They have mirror-like tissue in their eyes, called tapetum lucidum, that reflects light back to their retinas where visual images are formed, helping them to see better than most animals when light is scarce. When you see the glowing eyes of a cat at night, you are seeing light reflected from this special tissue. House cats have the same excellent vision as their wild cousins and may still hunt at night. When prey animals like mice and rats are most active. While cats don't see colors particularly well, they can spot motion quickly, which is more important for an animal that hunts at night. Because cats have eyes that use light very efficiently. Only small amounts of light are needed to see during the day. That explains why a cat's dark center pupils which let light into the eyes are only narrow slits when light is bright. At night a cat's pupils look more like those of other animals, large and round. A cat can see 6 times better than we can in dim light.
How do submarine pilots know where they are going when they are underwater?
If they are not too far below the surface, a periscope is used. This tall, rotating, tube-shaped instrument can be raised above the water's surface to view surroundings. Using a series of mirrors and lenses inside to relay images. Beyond that, submarines use sonar, sound waves, to make echo soundings of their surroundings. Transmitted sound waves are reflected off objects or the ocean floor. The time it takes for these sound waves to be reflected back indicates how far away things are located. The echoes are then converted into electrical signals that appear on a display screen, which gives a picture similar to that of an airport's radar screen of surrounding waters.
What should I do when I meet a stranger?
Most of the strangers you encounter are decent people who treat children with respect and would never think of hurting them. But there are dangerous people who do harmful things to children.
How can I get a bigger allowance?
One way to get a bigger allowance is to prove to your parents that the amount you are getting now is not enough to cover your expenses. Keep track of your spending for a week by making a list. Show this to your parents when you tell them about the increase you think you should have. Explain why your expenses have changed, that the price of movie tickets has gone up at your neighborhood theater, for example. If you want to save money to buy something expensive, tell them that, too. Or maybe you feel that you have grown old enough to handle more of your own expenses, like buying your own clothes. Whatever your reasons for needing a bigger allowance, present them as clearly and calmly as you can. Give your parents time to think it over and you might have good results.
Why do I have to do household chores?
Running a household is a lot of work. Your parents do most of the chores required to take care of your family's food, clothing, house, and yard, especially when you are young. But as you become older, your strength and skills increase, and you can help out. Household tasks are called chores because they usually aren't fun to do. You can probably think of plenty of activities that would be more entertaining than cleaning your room or mowing the lawn. But these things have to be done by somebody. And it is only fair that everybody in a family does his or her part. And when all family members pitch in, household chores get done more quickly. And everyone has more time to do the things that they like. So when you do household chores, you are really showing that you care about your family. Also, taking on such additional responsibilities is a part of growing up, preparing you for the time when you will have to do those jobs by yourself.
Why do cats purr?
It is generally believed that cats purr to show contentment, but no one knows for sure. Cats are born with the ability to purr. Kittens make the tiny rumbling sounds when they are nursing. Scientists think that purring starts out as a form of communication between a mother cat and her kittens. The purrs let the mother cat know that her babies are happy and feeding well. And she may purr back in response. Later, cats continue to purr when they are in a contented mood or as a friendly greeting. But scientists aren't exactly sure how cats purr. Many think that it comes from the vibration of blood in a large vein in a cat's chest, caused when surrounding muscles repeatedly squeeze and release the blood vessel. Air in a cat's lungs and windpipe increase the sound of the vibration so that it can be heard. Though sometimes the purring of a cat is silent and can only be felt. Other scientists think that cats purr when membranes called false vocal cords, located in a cat's throat near the real ones, start to vibrate.
Why is kindergarten important?
In the United States, public schooling begins with kindergarten, when a child is about 5 years old. Kindergarten is a half day of classes in an elementary school. While most of the activities in kindergarten are play activities like singing, storytelling, and drawing, children are also learning basic skills through these activities that they will need throughout their lives. These skills include listening to directions, using their time well, and working in cooperation with others. Kindergarten helps children adjust to school slowly, going only a few hours each day. It bridges the gap between the age when kids spend their days playing, at home, or in daycare or nursery school, and the more formal learning that will begin once a child enters the first grade. A German educator named Friedrich Froebel opened the first kindergarten in 1837. Its name is German for Garden of Children.
Why do clothes need to be washed?
If you want to look clean and smell nice, your clothes must be washed frequently. Most clothing is made of tiny threads that are woven together. As you go about your day, dirt and odors get trapped in the weave of your clothes and can only be removed by washing. Clothes must be jiggled and swished around quite a bit in water, as is done in a washing machine, to best remove dirt and odors from their tiny hiding places. Detergent is added to water to help the process. It can break up oily dirt into smaller pieces that can be whisked away. And it can surround other dirt particles and pull them away from fabric. Washing machines are run by electric motors that turn large blades inside a big drum or tub that is filled with water. The blade turns back and forth, pushing soapy water and clothes around. A front-loading machine has no blades, but the drum turns and tumbles the clothes to get them clean. A washing machine automatically gets rid of dirty water and rinses the clean clothes before wringing water out of them, making them nearly dry. Before washing machines, people had to use muscle power and a great deal of time to loosen dirt from the weave of clothes. They did this by stamping on wet clothes with their feet, or beating them against rocks, or rubbing them on bumpy washboards to get them clean.
How does television work?
Television works through a series of complicated processes. It starts with a television camera, which takes pictures of scenes. Photocells inside the camera change the pictures to electrical signals. At the same time, a microphone records sounds that are occurring during the scenes. A vibrating magnet in the microphone changes these sounds into electrical signals, too. Some television shows, like news reports, are recorded live, which means that they are broadcast to homes as they occur. But most of the television programs that we watch are recorded, which means that they are put on videotape and sent out later. The electrical signals of sound and pictures are stored as magnetic signals on videotape, which are converted back to electrical signals when played, before a program is broadcast. Its electrical picture and sound signals are run through a device called a television transmitter. With the help of strong magnets, the transformer turns the electrical signals into invisible bands of energy called radio waves. Similar to visible light waves, which can travel great distances through the air. They can travel directly to outdoor television antennae, which catch the waves and send them to television sets that change them into pictures and sounds again. Cable companies send electrical picture and sound signals through cables directly to homes. When broadcasting to faraway places, communication satellites that orbit the world are used to bounce or return the waves back to Earth, extending their travel distance. Satellites are necessary because radio waves move in straight lines and cannot bend around the world. When an antenna or satellite dish receives radio waves, it changes them back into electrical signals. A speaker in a television set changes some of the signals back into sound. The pictures are reproduced by special guns at the back of a television set that shoot electron beams at the screen, causing it to glow with tiny dots of different colors. Viewed together, The dots look like a regular picture. The individual pictures that make up a scene are broadcast and received one after another at a pace so quick that it looks like continuous action is occurring on the screen. The entire process happens very fast because television stations and broadcast towers are all around, and because radio waves travel very quickly, at the speed of light. Radio programs broadcast talk and music across the airwaves using the same technology.
Why do houses usually have lawns around them?
Houses have lawns around them for several reasons. The stretches of green grass look pretty, and they are good. Safe places for children to play when they are outside. Also, lawns frequently mark the boundaries that separate one person's property from another. Long ago, only the rich could afford to have lawns. Other people had to use all of their land to raise crops so that they had enough to eat. So a lawn became a status symbol, a sign to others that its owner had enough wealth to waste a portion of his or her land on grass, which was merely pretty, not producing anything that could be eaten or sold. That way of thinking may still be at work today. The average American lawn could produce about $2,000 worth of fruits and vegetables if it were planted. But instead of using land as a way to save money, American homeowners do exactly the opposite. Spending several $100s and countless hours each year on maintaining their lawns. Many people value the beauty of a well-cared-for lawn, however. Admiring the effect of a homeowner's hard work. Dr. John Falk, who works for the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, D.C., has conducted studies to prove his own interesting theory about why people like lawns. He thinks that because most of our history as humans was spent on the grassy savannas, large grassy areas with few trees, of East Africa, our desire to live around lawns is biological, or passed on through our genes from our prehistoric beginnings. Falk thinks that people naturally prefer the familiarity and safety, because the approach of predators can be seen, of flat, grassy land over any other kind of environment. And his experiments seem to prove the theory true. Falk showed people from all over the world pictures of different terrains: desert, rainforest, coniferous, evergreen, forest, deciduous, leaf shedding, forest, and savanna, and most chose the grassland as the place where they would like to live.
How do cellular phones work?
Cellular phones have exploded in popularity in a relatively short period of time. Cell phones first became available to consumers in the early 1980s. But the technology that made them small and truly portable evolved gradually over the next 10 years or so. By the beginning of the 21st century, millions and millions of people in countries all over the world were using cell phones on a daily basis. And it isn't just adults who enjoy the benefits of completely mobile phone capabilities. In the United States alone, more than 20% of teenagers have a cell phone. That translates to at least 1 in 5 American teens. Before cellular phones, people like police officers or taxi drivers could communicate from their cars using two-way radios. All of the radios in one city transmitted signals via a large central antenna located on top of a tall building, with all callers sharing one antenna. The number of calls that could be made at any one time was very limited. The cellular system takes care of that problem by dividing each city into many small cells. A large city can have hundreds. Each cell has its own tower, which contains an antenna as well as transmitters and receivers that send and receive signals. Each tower can handle numerous callers at a given time, and their small size and weaker signal, compared to the radio antennae, means that their signals don't interfere with those of nearby towers. When you call someone using a cellular phone, your phone is sending and receiving signals via radio waves, invisible bands of energy that work like light rays. In other words, your cell phone is a fancy, high-tech radio. After you dial a friend's number, your phone must find the closest tower by searching for the strongest signal. Once that signal is located, your phone transmits certain information like your cell phone number and serial number that help your service provider, the company your parents pay each month for cell phone service. Make sure you are one of their customers. Then the mobile telephone switching office, MTSO, finds an available channel where your conversation can take place. The MTSO then completes the connection, all of this happening in a few short seconds. And you are chatting with your friend without wires or cords to hold you down. If you are sitting in the back seat of the car while talking, and your mom is driving you from one end of town to the other, your call will be automatically switched from one cell to the next without any pause in your conversation.
How do elevators work?
An elevator is any device that moves things or people from one level to another. They are especially important in tall structures like skyscrapers, where climbing stairs to get to top floors would be very difficult. The car of an elevator, in which people ride, is attached to guard rails inside a tall, empty space called a shaft. It is moved by a steel cable that is attached to a large weight that counterbalances it. An electric motor raises and lowers the cable, changing the positions of the car and weight as the elevator moves from floor to floor. Usually posted inside an elevator are numbers that indicate the car's weight limit. An elevator motor cannot do its job if a car is a lot heavier than the weight that balances it. The first elevators in use were not especially safe because once in a while a cable would break, and a car, pulled by gravity, would come crashing down. Safety devices were soon added, though, to keep such disasters from occurring. American inventor Elisha Otis invented the first safety elevator in 1853. Additional ropes attached to cars and powerful metal jaws that grip guardrails keep elevators from falling if their main cables break. Other safety devices keep elevators from moving when their doors are still open and from traveling too fast. Automatic switches in the shaft allow an elevator to hurry past unwanted floors, or to slow and stop when a chosen floor is reached, unlocking its doors to admit and release passengers.
What should I do if someone asks for my name when I'm online?
The internet is an amazing place where you can find information on all kinds of things. You can chat with friends, email long-distance pen pals, and read what other people are saying about things you're interested in. But just as you shouldn't talk to strangers when in the outside world, you should also use caution when chatting in the cyber world. Unfortunately, there are people surfing the web who present a threat to kids. They may be adults posing as another kid or somehow lying to you about who they are and what they want. To be safe, never give anyone you don't know personal information about yourself online, including your name, address, or phone number. And never agree to meet a person you've chatted with online, even if that person seems friendly and harmless. Let your parents know if a stranger is sending you email or instant messages. It's also important to ask your parents first before registering at a website. Many sites offer special benefits if you register as a member, which involves providing your name, email address, and sometimes home address, phone number, and other information. While some sites protect your privacy and only use that information to send you things you want, others sell your information to advertisers or organizations. As a result of registering at a website, your family may end up getting lots of unwanted email, regular mail, and phone calls from companies trying to sell you things. And even if you find a great deal online for something you really want, never give out your parents' credit card information unless they say it's okay.
How do you know which is which?
The problem is that you can't always know. Sometimes hurtful people can fool kids into thinking they are gentle and helpful. They may have pleasant faces and friendly voices, and they may say nice things. So it's important to follow personal safety rules with all strangers.
How do trains run?
A train is a series of unpowered cars pulled along tracks by a locomotive, or engine. The locomotive is run by a motor, either electric or a diesel-electric combination that Provides the power that turns its wheels, moving the engine and the cars attached to it. A single locomotive can pull dozens and dozens of cars, some trains reach more than a mile in length. Electric motors are used only for trains that run over the same track for short distances. They receive electricity from wires that run above the track. Trolleys and streetcars are types of electric trains. A subway train is powered by electricity delivered through a third rail on its tracks. Unlike electric engines, diesel-electric engines can provide the amount of power needed to propel locomotives that travel long distances and pull great weights. Burning diesel oil powers a generator that creates electricity. The electricity powers motors that turn the wheels. For many decades, before diesel oil was used, locomotive engines were powered by superheated steam, made by burning coal or wood in large furnaces.
What happens to our garbage after it's collected?
A garbage truck probably comes to your neighborhood once a week to pick up your family's trash. On other days, garbage trucks are at work in other parts of your city. Sometimes trash that can't be reused or recycled is taken away to an incinerator plant, where it is burned into ash. Most often garbage is taken to a landfill, a huge hole in the ground commonly known as a garbage dump. Both methods of disposal cause problems. Burning garbage creates waste products that enter the air, causing pollution. Landfills use up precious space. There are more than 9,000 in the United States, and are so ugly and smelly that few communities want one located near them. Transporting trash to distant landfills is troublesome and expensive. The best way to handle garbage is to make less of it, developing habits that are not wasteful, and to reuse and recycle the trash that we can't avoid making. Americans produce about 230 million tons of garbage each year. In order to get as much garbage as possible into a landfill, it is crushed and tightly packed into its space. At the end of each day, new trash is covered with a layer of dirt to keep germs from spreading and to keep creatures like rats and flies away. Pipes have to be inserted into landfill sites to allow the escape of gases that are produced when garbage decomposes. If this wasn't done, the gases could explode. Once garbage nears the top of a landfill, the hole is sealed off and covered with tons of dirt. Over time, when decomposition has stopped and all dangerous gases have escaped, the spot can be used for other things. One northern community, for example, built a great sledding hill on top of its landfill.
Why are some kids better students than others?
Some children do better in school than others for many reasons. All kids have different talents and abilities, and some of these just show up better in school. Some children may be naturally better at reading and writing and working with numbers, and at storing and using information. Most schoolwork requires these skills. So kids who are strong in these areas are likely to be better students. Other children, whose special talents may lie in music or art or sports, may not do quite as well. Still, most kids have enough ability to learn the basic skills taught in schools. Things that they will need to know to get along well in the world once they graduate. But remember that schoolwork does take effort. You can't learn if you don't work at it. A student can almost always become better by caring more and trying harder, even if it requires asking for special help. Good students usually come from families that consider education important, and they put a lot of time and effort into their studies.
Do cats really have 9 lives?
Do animal has more than a single life? But cats do seem to survive dangerous situations that would likely hurt or kill other animals. Most remarkable cat survival stories involve the animals falling from high places. Cats love to perch on top shelves or at window sills to get a good view of their surroundings. Their narrow, flexible bodies and great sense of balance allow them to climb into some pretty unusual places. They rarely fall from their high perches, but when they do, they usually end up with little or no damage. One reason for this is that cats have the ability to twist and turn themselves around in midair, landing on all 4 feet. Also, their flexible muscles and skeletons help their bodies absorb the impact of falls without getting hurt. Some cats have survived long falls from the windows of high-rise buildings without a scratch. Their natural characteristics seem to give them more lucky chances than other animals, hence the saying that cats have 9 lives.
Why do I have to go to school?
So much of what you need to know to live successfully as an adult does not come naturally. It has to be learned and studied and memorized. Children learn to speak naturally, for example, by listening to those around them, but reading and writing must be specifically taught. The complicated process of learning the alphabet and the sounds it represents. Putting letter sounds together to make words. And learning the meaning of words in order to read and write are skills that only come with special effort. Knowing how to figure out problems that involve numbers, and learning how the world is run or how nature works are important things to learn, too. Your parents might be able to teach you these things, but they would need many hours each day to do it. Most parents need to work outside the home and wouldn't have the time to give proper instruction. Though some kids are home-schooled by their parents instead of going to school. In the United States, a public school system provides years of free education for all children. Teachers who are specially trained to know what children should learn. And how, and when are the people who do the job. In past centuries, when most people worked on farms or in simple factory jobs, formal schooling, that done in a classroom, was not as important. But today, jobs frequently require complicated skills and complex knowledge. To ensure that all children learn the kinds of things that will help them do well as adults, state governments now require that all children to go to school for a certain number of years, usually to the age of 16. So that's another reason you have to go to school, it's the law. Kids who skip school a lot find themselves in court. Children who go to private schools or whose parents have received special permission to teach them at home are exceptions.
What is an allowance?
An allowance is an amount of money usually given each week to a child by his or her parents. Kids can use this money to pay for their personal expenses. For things like special snacks, toys, or activities with their friends. In some families, parents do not give their kids allowances. And children just ask their parents when money is needed. But allowances are useful, because they help teach kids how to manage money. Children learn how to control their expenses by staying within their weekly budgets. And children can learn to save if they want to buy something expensive by holding on to a portion of their allowances each week. Generally, as children grow older, they become better at handling money, they also have more expenses. So older children usually require larger allowances. In some families, allowances are considered payment for doing household chores. And they increase when children grow older and do more work around the house.
Why do I have to do homework?
Sometimes there are not enough hours in the school day to get everything done or to learn all that needs to be learned about a subject. Then you have to use your time outside of school to finish the work. When you don't do homework, you are only hurting yourself by not learning or practicing what you need to know. Homework is not just something you do to make your teacher happy. Completing school assignments and doing school projects outside the classroom can teach you important skills. 2. Like how to manage your free time, work independently, or use resources in a library.
How does the internet work?
Just as telephones are connected by a worldwide phone system, home and work computers can connect with a global computer communications network known as the Internet. Each computer that is linked to the system has its own Internet address, as individual as a phone number. Home computer users buy the services of an internet provider, which is an organization with powerful computers that link all its subscribers to the internet. Many large organizations and companies have computers that link them directly to the network. Internet users can visit the World Wide Web, which is a global network of websites providing information, entertainment, products, and other services. People can use the internet to send electronic mail, known as email, to one another in just a few seconds. Once you type a message into your computer to send to your cousin, let's say who lives miles from you across the country, it travels through the wires of your phone line as a series of electrical signals. Or, for some people, the signals travel through the same cables that bring them cable television. These signals travel to a station run by your service provider, where a big computer sends them to an internet routing center. Located all over the world, routing centers link to organizations and internet providers send the countless computer communications that come to them each second along the quickest possible routes to their destinations. A giant computer there reads the address on your email and sends it farther. Depending on the distance it must travel, it may continue along phone lines, be changed into light signals that can travel with great speed along thin glass strands called fiber optic cables, or be converted into equally speedy invisible bands of energy known as radio waves and transmitted to a communications satellite that will bounce it back to Earth to a ground station located close to where your cousin lives. Once your message reaches the routing center nearest your cousin, it will be sent to the station of his or her service provider. From there it will be sent along regular phone lines to his or her computer. And all of this happens in a matter of moments.
What happens to garbage that is recycled?
Many communities have trash recycling programs to try to reduce the amount of garbage that must go to landfills. Certain types of trash, things made of materials like metal, glass, plastic, paper, and cardboard, can usually be processed and reused. Once cleaned and sorted, metal cans, for instance, can be melted down and poured into molds that make new cans or parts for things like cars and kitchen appliances. Glass jars and bottles are cleaned, too, and sorted into colors: clear, green, brown, and more. They are then smashed into tiny pieces that can be used to make bricks and paving materials. Or they are melted down and poured into molds to form new jars and bottles. Plastics cause the biggest garbage problem. All sorts of containers and other products are made from plastic, but only some types can be recycled. Plastic doesn't rot or decompose like many other kinds of trash, which means that when it goes into a landfill, it is there to stay for a very long time. When many plastics are burned, they produce dangerous chemical vapors that pollute the air. The kinds of plastics that can be recycled are cleaned, melted, and poured into molds to make new plastic objects, like pipes, insulation, and office equipment. Because so many trees are cut down every year to make paper for books, magazines, newspapers, and other products, it is important to recycle paper items so new paper can be made from them. During the recycling process, waste paper is chopped into very fine pieces, mixed with water, boiled, and made into a thick soup called pulp. This pulp may be washed and bleached to make it white or left a natural color. Pulp is then spread out onto large screens that allow water to drip through. Next, giant rollers squeeze the pulp, removing more water. Once the new paper is dry, it is wound onto huge spools and later cut into sheets of paper. Other paper products like cardboard boxes are made in similar ways. Wood fibers and other plant materials are also used in paper making.
How do telephones work?
All sound is made by the back and forth movement, or vibration, of objects. When an object vibrates, it makes the molecules around it vibrate too, causing a ripple of motion known as a sound wave, which can travel through air, water, and solid materials. A telephone has vibrating parts, a disc in the mouthpiece and one in the earpiece that turn voice sounds into electrical signals that can travel along telephone wires and then turn back into sound again. Phones are usually connected to wires because they run on electricity. When you pick up a phone, a low electrical current allows you to dial the series of numbers that will connect you to the phone of a friend, for example. Each number on the phone has its own special electrical signal. And when the right numbers are combined, they can exactly identify your friend's phone line. A local telephone office receives this information when you dial and sends your call in the right direction. Call signals to places close by travel along wires or cables, buried underground or strung high in the air between supports. But when the person you call is very far away, the electrical signals sent from your phone are changed into invisible waves of energy called microwaves, which can travel long distances through the air. These waves are sent through space to communication satellites that orbit the world, which bounce them back to Earth, extending the wave's travel distance. An antenna at a receiving station near the home of your friend picks up the waves and changes them to electrical signals once more. They travel by cable to the telephone office that services your friend's neighborhood, where his or her number is identified. A signal is then sent to your friend's phone to make it ring. The entire process from dialing to ringing takes just a few seconds. When your friend answers the phone, a microphone in its mouthpiece contains a plastic disc that vibrates, turning his or her message into electrical signals that travel along the same path as before. A speaker in the earpiece of your phone receives the electrical signals, which vibrate another plastic disc that changes them back into sound. Two circuits from microphone to speaker are created, and you can talk back and forth with your friend. The next time you use the phone, think of the remarkable process that makes it possible.
What can you do to stay safe when you are outside or away from home?
Here are some basic guidelines: play with at least one other kid and in familiar places. Don't go near a car with a stranger in it, even if the person says he or she has a gift for you, or needs your help to find a lost pet, or is asking for directions. Think about it this way: if an adult really needed help, he or she would ask another adult, not a kid. Don't accept a ride home from school or anywhere from someone you don't know, even if that person says your parents asked him or her to pick you up, and even if that person knows your name. Basically, try to avoid situations where you are alone with an adult you don't know unless it is a person your parents have arranged for you to meet with, like a doctor or a counselor. If a stranger approaches you, tell that person to please not speak to you because you don't know him or her. If the stranger continues toward you, start yelling and run away. If you need help, your best bet is to go to a public place like a store, a library, or especially a police station. Afterward, be sure to tell your parents about your experience with the stranger.
Why isn't there school during the summer?
Our 10-month school year from September through June developed when most people still lived and worked on farms. Parents needed their children to help out at home during the growing season, so there was no school in the summer. The 10-month school year became a tradition. Even now, when most people no longer live and work on farms, the traditional school year has remained, and other traditions were built around it. A summer vacation from school became a tradition, too, allowing children to go on special trips with their families. The summer tourist industry depended on family vacationers in order to make money, and on students to do the work with summer jobs. But studies have shown that the 2 to 3 months that children have off in the summer can cause problems. A lot of learning is forgotten over the long summer, and a lot of time is wasted relearning it during review time when school begins in the fall. Because our society is no longer an agricultural one, and because almost all institutions operate throughout the year, many educators have been looking into the idea of year-round schools. There are about 2,700 year-round schools in the United States today, and studies show that most of their students learn more than those who attend traditional schools. Continuous education appears to be better than interrupted education. Children at most year-round schools attend the same number of days 180 as children at regular schools. But instead of a long summer break, they have shorter, more frequent breaks throughout the year. These breaks, called intersessions, are often used by students who need extra help or who want to learn more about things that especially interest them. The number of year-round schools is growing, which may indicate the start of a new tradition.
How do cat years compare with human years?
The formula to figure out the age of a cat in human years goes like this. At 1 year old, a cat has the equivalent of 20 human years, and each additional year counts as another 4. The average lifespan of a house cat is between 12 and 14 years, which equals between 64 and 72 human years.
What should you do if all your efforts in school bring disappointing results?
Don't be ashamed and don't give up. The most important thing is not how much you learn or how fast you learn, but that you continue to learn and do your best.
What should you do if all your efforts in school bring disappointing results?
Don't be ashamed and don't give up. The most important thing is not how much you learn or how fast you learn, but that you continue to learn and do your best.
What are learning disabilities?
Learning disabilities are disorders that keep people from understanding or using spoken or written language in typical ways. Learning disabilities are not due to physical handicaps like blindness or deafness. Rather, the disorders have to do with problems in the brain and the way it perceives things. About 6% of all children in the United States have some sort of learning disability. The most common of these are dyslexia, where the brain has trouble understanding words, sometimes reversing the order of letters and words, and attention deficit disorder, AD, which is marked by an inability to concentrate. Special teaching methods have been developed that help such children learn successfully despite their disorders. This teaching is done either in the regular classroom, in special classes, or at a specialized school, depending on the severity of the disorder. It is important to identify learning disabilities early, before affected children express their frustration in bad behavior or start thinking of themselves as stupid. Most people with learning disabilities simply need help learning things in different ways, or at a different pace, from other kids. A great number of people with learning disabilities have above average intelligence. Many go on to lead very successful lives. It is believed that inventor Thomas Edison, political leader Winston Churchill, and scientist Albert Einstein all had learning disabilities. What is meant by IQ?
What are learning disabilities?
Learning disabilities are disorders that keep people from understanding or using spoken or written language in typical ways. Learning disabilities are not due to physical handicaps like blindness or deafness. Rather, the disorders have to do with problems in the brain and the way it perceives things. About 6% of all children in the United States have some sort of learning disability. The most common of these are dyslexia, where the brain has trouble understanding words, sometimes reversing the order of letters and words, and attention deficit disorder, AD, which is marked by an inability to concentrate. Special teaching methods have been developed that help such children learn successfully despite their disorders. This teaching is done either in the regular classroom, in special classes, or at a specialized school, depending on the severity of the disorder. It is important to identify learning disabilities early, before affected children express their frustration in bad behavior or start thinking of themselves as stupid. Most people with learning disabilities simply need help learning things in different ways, or at a different pace, from other kids. A great number of people with learning disabilities have above average intelligence. Many go on to lead very successful lives. It is believed that inventor Thomas Edison, political leader Winston Churchill, and scientist Albert Einstein all had learning disabilities. What is meant by IQ?
What is the IQ?
Q stands for intelligence quotient, and it is supposed to be a measurement of how naturally intelligent a person is. Intelligence tests are not designed to show how much a person has learned. Rather, they are meant to measure a person's ability to learn. This ability is something that doesn't change much as a person grows older. Even though he or she may pick up a lot of new facts and skills. Scientists think that each person is born with a certain amount of intelligence or mental ability. Still, how well a person uses his or her natural intelligence has a lot to do with the person's desire to learn and the learning environment in which he or she grows up. IQ tests measure things like the ability to use words, the ability to see how things relate to one another, and the ability to store and use information. But a lot of intelligence experts think that IQ tests are unfair, because they can't help but test a person's learned knowledge in the phrasing of the questions. Depending on where you grew up or what language is spoken in your home, you may not be familiar with certain words used in some questions. And if you have trouble understanding what's being asked of you, it can be difficult to demonstrate your ability to think and reason. The term intelligence quotient comes from a mathematical equation used to score intelligence tests. A person's mental age, which is determined by how many questions he or She answered correctly on such a test as divided by his or her actual age. Then that number is multiplied by 100 to give an IQ score. A person whose mental and actual age are the same will have an IQ that is 100, which is average. Remember that intelligence is just one thing that contributes to a person's ability to succeed in life and be happy. Special talents, hard work, creativity, and character are just as important.
What is the IQ?
IQ stands for intelligence quotient, and it is supposed to be a measurement of how naturally intelligent a person is. Intelligence tests are not designed to show how much a person has learned. Rather, they are meant to measure a person's ability to learn. This ability is something that doesn't change much as a person grows older. Even though he or she may pick up a lot of new facts and skills. Scientists think that each person is born with a certain amount of intelligence or mental ability. Still, how well a person uses his or her natural intelligence has a lot to do with the person's desire to learn and the learning environment in which he or she grows up. IQ tests measure things like the ability to use words, the ability to see how things relate to one another, and the ability to store and use information. But a lot of intelligence experts think that IQ tests are unfair, because they can't help but test a person's learned knowledge in the phrasing of the questions. Depending on where you grew up or what language is spoken in your home, you may not be familiar with certain words used in some questions. And if you have trouble understanding what's being asked of you, it can be difficult to demonstrate your ability to think and reason. The term intelligence quotient comes from a mathematical equation used to score intelligence tests. A person's mental age, which is determined by how many questions he or she answered correctly on such a test, is divided by his or her actual age. Then that number is multiplied by 100 to give an IQ score. A person whose mental and actual age are the same will have an IQ that is 100, which is average. Remember that intelligence is just one thing that contributes to a person's ability to succeed in life and be happy. Special talents, hard work, creativity, and character are just as important.
Who made up our system of numbers?
From earliest times, people have had to keep track of things by counting. Historians believe that people used their fingers and toes, and then notched sticks, and finally number systems to help them count and measure things. The system of numbers that we use is known as a base 10, or decimal system because it advances in segments of 10, dec means 10. It is believed that such a system is based on finger counting. Two of the most widely used number systems, Arabic and Roman, are decimal systems. We use the Arabic system of writing numbers. Europeans learned it from Arabs, who in turn developed it from the number system used by Hindus in ancient India. But other types of decimal number systems had developed simultaneously in different parts of the world. As early as 4000 BC, Babylonians, who lived in the region that is now Iraq, wrote numbers from left to right and grouped them in tens. Ancient China, too, used a decimal number system. The numeral 0 was added to the Arabic system later. It was first used in India and China around AD 600.
Who made up our system of numbers?
From earliest times, people have had to keep track of things by counting. Historians believe that people used their fingers and toes, and then notched sticks, and finally number systems to help them count and measure things. The system of numbers that we use is known as a base 10, or decimal system because it advances in segments of 10, dec means 10. It is believed that such a system is based on finger counting. Two of the most widely used number systems, Arabic and Roman, are decimal systems. We use the Arabic system of writing numbers. Europeans learned it from Arabs, who in turn developed it from the number system used by Hindus in ancient India. But other types of decimal number systems had developed simultaneously in different parts of the world. As early as 4000 BC, Babylonians, who lived in the region that is now Iraq, wrote numbers from left to right and grouped them in tens. Ancient China, too, used a decimal number system. The numeral 0 was added to the Arabic system later. It was first used in India and China around AD 600.